went to Fiji for the International Journalism Project, and I met with Professor Vijay Naidu from the University of the South Pacific School of Governance and Development Studies. I asked him to give me an overview and discuss the progress that Fiji has made since the coups. First of all, I want to ask you the progress and the overview since 2006 coups.
Well, at the level of the economy, things have stabilized and there's been economic growth over the last 8 years. So after the coup, like previous coups, the economy declined, but it picked up 3-4 years later. In terms of certain initiatives taken by government, including a common name for all Fiji citizens and making Fiji citizenship available to our people who have gone abroad, and there are nearly 200,000 of them who have gone abroad since 1987. So that's a good initiative in my view. In the area of human rights, we have a long way to go. And in terms of political development, there are serious issues around the nature of the 2013 Constitution and how more than 400 decrees that were promulgated between late 2006 to 2013 continue to be valid.
What do you think the Constitution or the electoral system has reduced the emphasis on voting along ethnic lines? How do you think?
Well, I think it's a positive action, but it doesn't mean people won't vote along ethnic lines. You see?
Yeah.
What it does is that we don't have communal constituencies and electorates. So people merely think about their own ethnicities and are forced to vote for people of their own ethnicities. With the current system, you don't have queuing of people according to their inverted commas race, as was the case in the past. In the current voting system, people are put on queues based on the alphabetical order of their names, and so ethnicity does not come into it. But once the voter is in the polling booth, then the voter chooses, and as was pointed out by Professor John Frankel last week, it doesn't mean that they won't voting on ethnic lines. But at least the electorate arrangement, the constitutional setup, and the system of elections does not foster ethnicity or race as a criteria.
And how do you assess the performance of this government?
Well, it's like the pros and cons.
Yeah.
I think it's a government that is in the pocket of the wealthy, so the rich have got richer under this government. It's a government that represents large corporate interests more than it represents the ordinary masses of the people. It is largely an anti-worker government. As you know, the minimum wage in Fiji is $2.68 Fijian an hour, which translates to a little more than $20.30 Australian.
And what do you think of the indigeneity issue, like losing the Fijianness out of the Fijian people because they're unique to the Pacific?
Well, that's a complex question that requires a lot of reflection and historical analysis. If you look at the Fiji context historically, Fiji should not be called Fiji. Our name is Viti. Yeah? But because the Tongans mispronounced it to Fiji.
Tongans, not the British.
No, they shared this with the British and others, that Fiji is F-E-E-J-E-E, Fiji. And so F-I-J-I became the name. And so, out of that came the word Fijian. And because the British have played this dirty game in the West Indies as well as over here, they ensured that the people from India were not sort of incorporated under a common name, you see. And so the term Fijian was reserved for indigenous Fijians. Before independence in 1970, the National Federation Party used to have a newspaper, weekly, called Pacific Review. And its editor was Ratu Julian Tongnevalu, and assisted by Ratu Mosese Verisekete. And they argued that in Fiji, we all should be called Fijians. And the name for the indigenous people should be Tauke, the owners of the land. That was the approach.
And that was by the NFP.
NFP and many progressive Fijians. So these two, Ratu Tongnevalu and Ratu Verisekete, they were educated and more progressive Fijians. The YWCA leaders at that time also submitted in their reflections relating to the constitution that we should have a common name. And mind you, all the prime ministers of this country, with the exception of Garase, have said our common name should be Fijian. And that includes Rambuka. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I don't think the identity of indigenous Fijians have been stolen. I think what we have is that in the Fijian language, Tauke means owners, Tauke means what belongs to the Tauke.
That was a discussion about the progress in Fiji since the coup. Sri Krishnamurthi for Asia Pacific Report.